Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest Gills in the Blood Chats 2. As you can see, I'm joined on Zoom today by last season's wing wizard, Jordan Graham, taking time out of his summer break to sit down and have a chat with me about his career in general and obviously his time in ME7 over the last two seasons, albeit all too briefly, but I'm sure we'll get onto that later on in the chat. But first of all, Jordan, just want to say a big thank you for you taking the time out your summer holidays now that the sun has finally come out and having a chat with us.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, really do appreciate it. And like I say, it's great to get someone on who's just finished playing for us. It's quite tricky, unfortunately, to get. Well, it's impossible to get contracted players on at the moment, unfortunately. So it was nice for you to say yes. And we try to go down the sort of legends route and that type of thing. And today we'd just have to go down the legend that was in the making route. Yeah, like I say, I want to talk about your career in general. But obviously the main point being a Gills channel is to have a chat about your time at the Gills. But we'll go back to last season first before we get onto your career as a whole. I think it's fair to say that last season, 2021, was your most productive as a senior pro. I think it was 13 goals and 12 assists in all competitions. That's by my calculations. Mine are probably slightly different to all these Opta stats and that go out there. I tend to include winning penalties because if you don't win the penalty, you don't score the penalty. So for me, that's an assist. So I've got it down as 13 goals and 12 assists in all competitions. But I just wanted to say to you, obviously, how much of a big part did Steve Evans and Paul Rayner play in that? Because obviously with the injury before that, you was a little bit nomadic. You had to keep going out on loan and never really settled. So it must have been great for you to find a club and a management duo that really had faith in you to just let you go out and do your thing.
Yeah, for sure. So if I take it back to last summer, so last summer, I mean, for one, I've always been confident in my footballing ability, even though my career path hasn't led me to really be in a position where people could look at what I've done and gone, oh yeah, he's really good. Like I've had I've had a really bad injury, then it's been stop-start over the last 4 or 5 years. So if you were to look at what I've done on paper, it'd be quite easy to go, oh, he just thinks he's that good, but he's not. But I've always believed that if I could really find a place to play some good football, I've got lots to offer. So last summer was quite frustrating for me because I didn't really have too many options, or especially nothing compared to what I thought I'd have. And it was kind of eye-opening, and it made me realize, it gave me a new hunger to want to go and really show the world what I actually can do.
Sure.
So, I mean, Steve called me last summer and said, we'd love to have you back down here. When I did come down in the January before the coronavirus, I think it was tough for me to play games because he didn't believe he had a squad that was suited to play with wide players. So they were playing almost every week they were playing a diamond while I was down there with, I think it was Alf and Stu and Tommy and Ollie Lee. So it was hard for me to kind of get in, being a wider player or a winger in a formation that isn't really playing anyone out wide. So Steve said to me, look, we're going to change things up next season. We saw the ability that you had while you were down here, and we think you could be a massive player for us next year. Come and meet me for a coffee or whatnot, and we'll have a talk. So I went and met Steve with my dad and sat down with him for about 2-3 hours and had a really good chat and a good catch up, and just spoke about what he wanted to do moving forward. And I really liked what he had to say. And I left there saying to my old man in the car on the way back, I think this could be really good for me. I really like it. And yeah, I mean, looking back now in hindsight, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my career. Not just for Steve, but for the group of players, the fan base. Even though there was no fans, I doubt there would have been as much support shown to me personally from another fan base, because I haven't really had that before apart from at Wolves. So I mean, looking back, it was a wicked move. And I loved my football. I loved playing every game. I loved knowing I was going to play. I loved training. I loved the boys. I loved the staff were wicked with me. And yeah, they just got the best out of me. And it was just a really, really good season on the whole.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, and we'll talk briefly about that loan spell then, because like you said, we predominantly played the Diamond in 1920. Like you say, it was Alfie would sit, and then we had Stuart O'Keefe. I think Burner played from one side when he was fit before he done his knee, before you came in, and then Tommy O'Connor sort of developed into a left-sided midfielder, and Ollie Lee was the 10. And I think we was playing predominantly Brandon Hanlon and one other up top, wasn't we? I think John came in January just after you.
Sometimes Mika as well.
We had Mika, didn't we? We had Jordan Roberts played there as well. I think
Yeah,
the only two games you started actually was when we played 4-4-2, because I think Steve had said we need to win games to try and get in the playoffs. And I think you started at Southend. We played 4-4-2, but I think we had Jordan Roberts playing as the other winger.
Yeah,
so he was effectively playing 3 strikers. And then Sunderland, which was the last game before everything got shut down, I think we played you, Brandon, Jordan, and
Mika,
because he got both the goals. And then we chucked Big John on as well, didn't we? We were super attacking in the second half, chasing it. So the only 2 games that you did start, we won and drew, and I think you set up the goal at Southend, didn't you, for Connor Ogilvie?
Yeah, I did.
In the second half, and I think we all became very familiar with that little drop of the shoulder and get to the byline in the season after, and it sort of almost became your party piece. And I've had chats on Twitter with people and said that, Jordan just gets to the byline, but I thought, well, but he's so good at doing that, so he doesn't really need to come inside into traffic if there's no option on, and it became almost a bit of a running joke for me personally, obviously on my own, because like you, there was no fans, so I couldn't go and talk to people, and everything's been done like this for too long. But yeah, it just became silly, the amount of left backs you had just leaving them on their backside all season, and I think all the assists sort of is testament to that as well. I'm not sure there's many that weren't crosses into the box, and why not when you've got someone like John Akinde, or you've got Big Verdane in the middle that's going to win. Well, we've seen the stats on Twitter. It's ridiculous amounts of aerial battles that he won compared to everyone else. But it must have been frustrating, that loan spell, because he was probably just starting to build up a head of steam, and then it all got stopped, didn't it? And we was running into some form. I think we only lost once in the time you was here. That was that frustrating game at home to Wimbledon, when I think we got level really late, hadn't we? And then Max had to go off. He dislocated his shoulder, and they caught us at the end with 10 men. And it was a former Gills player, obviously, that scored the winner. So that just made it even nicer. So you said, I'm surprised to hear that you said you didn't have many options in the summer, because I thought from what we'd seen in that short spell, obviously it was only sort of cameos, which was probably frustrating for you. But it became very clear for me early on in the season how good you was going to be. But before we get into that in more detail, let's go right back to the beginning of your career. Like you said, you live in Coventry and you're from that area, so obviously you was Midlands based when you was trying to make your way in the game. I've lost the questions. 2 seconds. Here we go. Yeah. So first one is just wanted to ask about. It's gone again. Sorry. Bear me 2 seconds. My Twitter's playing up. Here we go. Obviously, you mentioned Wolves, but you came through the youth ranks at Aston Villa, I think, wasn't it? Historically, quite a big rivalry with Wolves. You got them up there. You got West Brom as well, sort of all come into that. Coventry a little bit, but obviously that sort of disappeared a bit over the last few years because of their problems, unfortunately. But how aware was you as a kid, obviously as a teenager growing up, of the rivalry between Villa, Wolves, and to a degree West Brom, or was it something you was almost sort of kept away from a little bit, and obviously your head was down, you was concentrating on trying to break into the youth setup or the first team or whatever and trying to make your way in the game? Was it a big thing? Do they make you very aware of it at that stage of your career, or is it something that just sort of develops with time and with age?
Yeah, it develops with time, with age, but I mean, of course I was aware. I was definitely aware, especially Villa Blues. You can't not be aware if you play for Villa about Birmingham City. So yeah,
that's probably the bigger one, isn't it? That's
the big one. Wolves is more Wolves West Brom, which is more Black Country, and then you've got Villa Birmingham. But I mean, I don't support Aston Villa, so it wasn't really a thing to me. I didn't really mind. I mean, everyone in my academy days at Villa, everyone would look forward to the Villa Birmingham game in the academy, of course. But I mean, I was never a Villa fan, so for me it was just football at the end of the day. So when I left Villa, which was frustrating for me because, I loved my time at Villa from when I was there from the age of 8 years old until I was 18 or 19. But Paul Lambert came in to Villa and just, he just kind of switched off from the boys that were getting pushed on to train with the first team, and he kind of just killed our hopes of where we were at the time. And people like me and Jack Grealish and Callum Robinson just almost got told to go back with the under 23s or under 18s, and and it was, it was tough. That was tough because we were doing really well at the time. So then my attitude probably could have been better dealing with that. And then we didn't see eye to eye, me and Paul Lambert at the time. And they ended up letting me leave and let me go. And I went to Wolves, which was incredible. I loved every minute of Wolves, even though things didn't really work out in the end how I would have hoped. My time at Wolves it made me a much better person. It made me learn the most about football. And yeah, I loved it. The fans were incredible with me. I think I was there in the Kenny jacket, and I believed I should have been getting probably a little bit more game time in the first team than what I was. I wasn't really getting anything. So I ended up going out on loan to Oxford under Michael Appleton, which was incredible because that was where I first really played the men's game, game in, game out. And I think I played 8 games there for Oxford. And Wolves actually Kenny recalled me to Wolves. And I thought, like, this is it. Like, I'm going to get my chance to go and play. So I was excited. And I think the next game was actually Birmingham City away at St Andrews on the Saturday. And I think I got called back on the Wednesday. And I think I trained on the Thursday and Friday for Wolves back in training. And I was awful, like really, really bad. And I think I actually played my way out of the team. So I think I got recalled to start. And then I just trained so poor. I think I just played my way out of the starting 11. So I got to the Saturday and I wasn't in the team. So I was thinking, what's going on here? Like, I got recalled surely to come and play. And now I'm not playing. And I was a little bit annoyed in my head because I was sat there thinking I could have been back at Oxford playing again. Like, I was loving playing so much. I just wanted to play.
Oh, shit.
So then a couple of games went by and I wasn't playing. So I went and saw the manager and said, look, I want to go back to Oxford and I want to continue developing. I want to play. And he said, okay, yeah, that's fine. Maybe you're not as ready for the championship as we thought you were. So I went back to my place, started to get all my stuff packed and ready to move back down to Oxford. And as I got in the car, Kenny called me and said to me, no, I'm going to play on Saturday. Come back into training tomorrow and you're going to start. No matter what happens, you're going to start. And I was like, okay, this is happening now. Like, this is it. So I knew there was no pressure on training. I knew that this was it. And it was kind of nice for me because Ipswich was my first ever loan when I loaned there from Aston Villa at 17 under Mick McCarthy. Yeah. So it was kind of a nice moment for me, making my debut for Wolves at a place where I made my first ever professional debut at Portman Road. So it was a big occasion. And yeah, I think I got man of the match that game and played 70 minutes and I came off with cramp because I was not used to the intensity of the championship. But yeah, it was wicked. And then I went and played 14 games, I think, in a row. And I got about 10 man of the matches and the fans just took to me and that was it. And then I ended up doing my ACL against Cardiff in a game at the Molineux. And it kind of all went downhill from there because the procedure was a nightmare. I ended up having to have a second procedure after 7.5 months of rehab. I think I was out for 16 months all in. Came back, made my first appearance back I came on for 20 minutes against Huddersfield. And then I started the last game of the season against Preston under Paul Lambert, who obviously I'd had an issue with before. And he played me. I played really well. We had a good meeting over the summer. After that last game of the season, and he kind of said, come back in good shape and you're going to move, we're going to kick on next season. So I was really excited to be back playing, and the manager, obviously, we'd put our stuff to one side and I was looking forward to playing. He ended up getting sacked from Wolves. Nuno came in and just saw me in a position that I didn't really see myself playing in. I didn't think I was...
I think I've listened to you on a podcast with Jackie Oakley about this, similar saying, because he wanted you to play as a wing back, didn't he, rather than as an out-and-out, wide attacker, which wasn't really your game, But then all the replies on that from the Wolves fans, and even now, like when you came to us, there were so many Wolves fans replying to the Gills Twitter feed, and like, you've got yourself a good one here, not to blow smoke up your ass too much. But you've got yourselves a good player, and he's going to tear it up in League One, and you did, to be fair. So, but I've got to ask about it now then, because obviously I was going to say who was in that youth system with you at Villa. I've got to ask, Jack Grealish, did you know he was going to be that good back then, or was there still a bit of development to do? It was quite obvious, was it?
Yeah, for me, yeah. I think most. So we had like a little trio, which was me, Jack Grealish, and Callum Robinson, which was our three that would play all the games in the under 18s, under 23s, and Jack's just had it. He's always had all the ability, and he's had it go for him. It's always everything in his career hasn't really gone wrong. You know, he's played at the right times. He's been at the right time, in the right place at the right time. He's not had injuries really that has ever stopped him, and everything's kind of gone into one for him. And if you give someone with Jack's ability a straightforward career path, they're only going to end up where Jack ended up. And I think there's so much more to come. I don't think anyone's really seen how good he can be. I don't think you're going to see the best of Jack Grealish until he moves. If he moves from Aston Villa and goes to a team where he's playing with world-class players around him day in, day out, I think you've seen the likes of how much Foden has improved, just training with David Silvas and Gundogan's and De Bruyne's every day. And as much as Jack loves Villa, and as much as he's Villa through and through, it's not the same playing with Douglas Luiz as it is playing with Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne. And I don't think you're going to see the best of Jack until he gets that move. And it might be this summer, it might be next summer, he might never move. Who knows? But for a footballing sake, I hope he does, because I think he's got so much more to offer, mate. I really do.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, sort of like people that come to Gills and then move on after one season.
I was waiting for that.
You set me up, didn't you? I couldn't resist.
I know,
it was like you provided the assist again, and I was Verdane at the back post nodding it in. So, but no, I totally agree what you mean, and it could be this summer, especially if he has a good summer at the Euros. If he gets games, it could be an incredible summer for Jack and a few others as well. Yeah, so do I. I mean, there's so many options, and we'll probably get onto England a little bit before the end of the chat. But yes. I had to ask about him in particular, and yeah, he's certainly going to be a player that could have a big impact in the summer, whether that's from the starting games or from the bench, dare I say, as well. But let's talk about last season now, still fresh in the memory. So you came back last summer, you said already, you had your chat with Steve, Paul Rayner, the chairman, and decided that it was the best move for you at the time, together with your father. And yeah, I'm glad you did, because it worked out all right. And I remember going back to the first couple of games, and because it was a weird season, wasn't it? Because it started with a couple of cup games because it was so condensed, and the COVID and everything like that. But I think you scored your first goal against Coventry in the League Cup, the penalty. But I think it was probably the Wigan game the Saturday after for me, where I just thought, he looks a bit too good for this level. Again, not to blow too much smoke up your arse. I must admit, on my match day video, I did you a disservice, because I was watching it with two mates at the time, because this was before it all got shut down and we ended up watching it all on our own. And that I think it was the first goal against Wigan, the equaliser, it come over into the box. And at the time, I thought it had hit the defender on the backside, and then you just lashed it into the corner. And it was only when I'd watched the replay that it was your first touch to pull it under control. And I thought, yeah, we might have a bit of a cheat code in League One here, to be honest. I didn't realise how good the first touch was. At the time. No, I'm real first touch, and that was the first time I thought, yeah, we've got one hell of a player here. And then you obviously scored the second. I don't think the keeper covered himself in glory, and a little. No. I mean, it sort of went through him, but you probably caught him out. But yeah, that first goal was the first one where I thought, yeah, if we keep this fella fit all season, we're going to have half a chance in most games. And for you, it must have been pleasing to hit the ground running and score twice early on in the season, and sort of get the fans on side, because it had been all too brief, hadn't it, the loan spell? We'd only really seen you from the bench.
Yeah, correct. And to be honest, scoring is not something that I've really done much of in my career. I think I've hardly scored any goals until I came to Gillingham, but it's something that I always knew I can and should be doing. And it was something that I really wanted to work on. And I had a target in my head at the start of this season of playing 35 games, starting 35 league games as a minimum, if I got no injuries, which I mean, I only missed a few games with my hamstring injury.
Yeah.
And getting into double figures for goals. And that was something I really wanted to do, was to get into double figures for league goals. And to end with, I think I got into double figures for league goals, and I think I got maybe 10 assists in all competitions as well. So to get into almost double figures for both of them is something that I can't, I can't praise myself anymore for, because that was my only target. That was something that I really wanted to do. And I said to myself, this is my year to really kick on and really show people that have ever had any doubt, or that have ever, like I said to you, there was a couple of clubs that were lingering around last summer, and we were kind of going back and forth, but nothing was really concrete. And I wanted to try and show people this season just gone, that he's still as good, or if not more improved than what he was 4 or 5 years ago. And that's why I kind of said to myself, I need to get into more positions where I can score. I know that I can get the ball wide and beat players and cross it. I've done that for almost my whole life, but scoring was something I wanted to add to. And as a winger, if you're getting into double figures for goals and assists, it's
always the holy grail, isn't it? They talk
main
it at any level. If you're doing double figures for
Correct.
both, they talk about people that were doing it in our division, like Sariki Dembele and stuff like that. And they talk about it in the Premier League. And I've been having this chat today on Twitter with people about England. And people are saying, oh, Rashford and Sterling have had a poor season, yet Foden and Grealish have had the season of their lives. But you look at the stats, and Rashford and Sterling's poor season is pretty much the same as Foden and Grealish's season of a lifetime. I think Marcus Rashford's had like 36 goal contributions this season in all competitions. And is it people like that you look to? Because obviously, I suppose you're more of a natural winger, whereas Marcus can play through the middle. But who was your heroes growing up then? Was there a couple in particular, or did you sort of try and look at all the best players that were out there and try and sort of take the best bits of each of them?
So it's a good question, actually, because this season, me and my dad and my mum together, because they watch every game on the iFollow as well, kind of been having like a back and forth debate. So for me, like I said earlier about Steve, I said like my role was kind of, quite robotic at Gillingham, which is just, if we can get the ball out wide to Jord, he'll get crosses in the box. Then we load the box with two strikers, or John and V, or Maka coming at the back post, Demps breaking from midfield, and it was kind of get the ball out wide and get the ball in the box. So for me, I've always, most of my career, I've been known as doing like step overs and nutmegs, and I've been quite a flary winger. Whereas this season, I knew I wasn't being anywhere near as flary as I could, because I wanted to almost take that side out of my game more and try and be more productive numbers wise. And
I knew all about that end product and hitting that far stick and making sure that we were getting across into a dangerous area.
I thought to myself, there's not much point in me doing 9 chops, step over nutmeg, step over chop, because I'll have Vidane in the box going, just put the ball in. I'm waiting. We built quite a good relationship. Now, as much as it looks good at home, and people are like, oh, he's got great feet, he has, or da-da-da-da. I've shown people before that I can do that, but I haven't shown people that I can get to 10 goals. I haven't shown people I can get to 10 assists in the same season. So for me, I was more concentrating on, once I've beat my man, put it in. If I get a yard, put it in, because that'll build up a relationship with my strike partners that will then know when it's coming in, and they can time their run to get the goals. And numbers-wise now, I'm way better than I ever was. I think I played 18 games in a row for Oxford 2 years ago, and I got 1 goal and 3 assists. But I would do 6 more step overs than I did at Gillingham per game. I'd try 6 more nutmegs than I would at Oxford than I did at Gillingham. But to finish 18 games with 1 goal and 3 assists compared to 30, whatever I started, 39 games this season with 13 goals, 12 assists, it's
44
different.
appearances in all competitions. I'm not sure what the starts were, but and then like I say, it's 13 goals, 12 in the league. I thought you only scored 1 in the cup. I think that was against Coventry. I think the rest were all league goals, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to a dozen league goals, half a dozen league goals. No, dozen.
Yeah. A dozen league goals. Yeah.
Yeah, a dozen league goals, and then the assists as well. There was plenty of them as well. And like I say, I include penalties, winning penalties in that, but I don't think there was many. I think you won a penalty against Crewe, which I gave you as an assist that you took up. You scored yourself, didn't you? But I don't think.
Yes.
I think the rest.
I won one against Lincoln away as well, which I scored as well.
Yes, you did right at the end when we were 2-0 up. Yeah, so you take them out, so it's still, it's still 10 because of the box or crosses rather than just winning a pen. So
correct. Yeah.
And so you definitely hit your target, and that's a phenomenal effort, like you say, because. It reminds me of when Ronaldo sort of first came to United, and it was, like you said, similar to what you were doing. It was all, because you're young and you want to impress, you think you've got to sort of stand out, so you have to do all the flashy stuff. But I'm sure Alex Ferguson was the same as Steve Evans was with you, and I'm not bothered if you're doing 2 step overs or 10, but if Dane's heading it in at the far post, that's more productive than, beating the left back 66 times and then the cross goes out of play for a goal kick type thing. So
correct.
But we move on a bit further forward. There was a last-minute equaliser at Shrewsbury, I think, in injury time, wasn't there? I think we'd been under the cosh. We weren't great that day. I think we had a couple of injuries. But one of my favourite goals for you was the one against Oxford at home. Really good team goal, I think, if we ended up with, I think Jacob Mellis, Declan Drysdale were involved, Dominic Samuel. There was 3 or 4 really
Dempsey,
quick passes, and then it got
out to
released. Jacko, and it, again, similar to you, just a little step over and got on the outside and created that half a yard. I think you met it about penalty spot on the half volley, and just sort of caressed it into the corner. And I thought that's going to take some beating that season in terms of a team goal. Obviously, Connor decided to go and do what he did at the Valley a few months later, and ruined the goal of the season competition for everyone else. But I thought in terms of team goals, I thought that was right up there at the time and even at the end of the season. And then we had, I think there was 2 more that I really liked the team goals, and that was probably Verdane's second at Bristol Rovers away. I'm not sure. I think you was injured that night. I think that was when you had your hamstring, hadn't you? Yeah, that was.
I do remember the goal though when Carl broke down the side and
Verdane collided with a post at the far stick, and then the one that you was involved with at home to Ipswich was absolutely brilliant as well. I think Jacko pinched it off the winger, and then you and Demps played a couple of 1-2s, and he got on his bike again, didn't he? And Verdane, I think, ran from his own penalty area after defending a corner. So and you've seen my tweets on Twitter, and you've got involved with a couple as well, and we've seen it from fans that predominantly come from supporters of teams that we've beaten, and they don't like losing to little old Gillingham and this whole long ball nonsense. And it just made me laugh because we scored some really good goals last season. Them 3 stick in the mind, and I'm sure there was others. I'm sure we scored a good one at home to Wimbledon, and that Dom scored. I think there was a couple against you, Crewe, and Wimbledon at home you were involved with as well.
Yeah, we scored quite a few good goals this year.
We did, yeah. There was plenty. Even early on in the season, I think Trey Coyle, before he disappeared, scored a really good one in the one against Crawley in the EFL Trophy. Yeah. Played a little 1-2 with Jacob Mellis.
Dempsey's one against Charlton away in like the 85th minute.
The 3 at Charlton were ridiculous, weren't they? It was like goal of the month ball in one afternoon.
Yeah. That was a good day, that was,
But just as a player, obviously, because you see it and you see us fans talking about it, I suppose you have to be careful as professionals as what you say and can't say too much, but it must make you laugh.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, and I mean, we've got we've got some players at Gillingham that like the back. They like to be on Twitter and interact and have a laugh and that. So it's been a good year because there's a few of us, as I'm sure you've seen, like Maka and me and Demps and V and Jacko, we're on Twitter, and we like to. I mean, it's not even a thing where we think, it's part of our job role to interact. Like, we just do it because we actually enjoy like the comments and enjoy the fans' interaction with us. It makes it more enjoyable as a group. So we had a really good group for social media and stuff, and we enjoyed all of it. And half the things that were said on there, we take it to the dressing room and carry on bantering each other in the changing room. So it was good. Yeah, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think even more so this season, it was important for us as supporters to have that interaction because obviously we couldn't come and cheer you on in stadiums. We couldn't go to away games or anything like that. So to have you boys sort of commenting, liking, retweeting on Twitter, I think it sort of helped us out as supporters, and it sort of bridged the gap a little bit. It's not the same. We know that as going into the stadiums and being able to sit in the rain event and cheer you on, but I think it sort of helped a little bit. And like I said, I've mentioned it a few times. I think it's been brilliant and really appreciate it from my own point of view, and as I'm sure the rest of the Gills fan base do.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so I suppose it does the team talk a little bit as well, doesn't it? I'm sure Steve doesn't take too much notice of Twitter, but I suppose at least you boys have seen it amongst yourselves and thinking, oh, look, it's going to be, we're playing Lincoln this week, little old Gillingham. What was it they called us? Teams like us. That cracked me up that night. When we beat them 3-0 up there. And you're just fueling it, aren't you? And you just
and it's always good for players win again. See what other teams say. Like, as much as we love what our own fans team say, like, it's good to see what other teams say as well. Like, because at the end of the day, like you say, it does fuel you. And even, I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there waiting to read bad tweets, but when you get one from a fan of another club or whatever, and it's just, at the end of the day, to me, it's just football banter. I don't mind it. I'm used to it. I've been called every name under the sun. So for me, it's normal. But it does kind of fuel you, like after a game when you see a comment, or before a game on the way to a stadium. And those are the kind of things that, you'd normally get when there are fans there. You get off the coach at an away stadium and people are shouting stuff at you, and it's like, do you know what, I'm going to score today, and just shut that fan up. And it's those little things that sometimes when the fans aren't there, you can only get that from social media. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I've just been distracted. Gills have just tweeted and said there's a new signing coming. You haven't signed a new contract, have you?
I haven't. No, mate, no, I haven't. But I do want to look now as well.
Yeah, it just come up. I thought, oh, here we go. So that'll be at past then. I know how they work. So 20 past.
Oh, they put a time. Okay.
They usually do it either 10 to the hour or 10 to the half hour. So the tweets come out. So I'd imagine the tweet would be at 2:30.
All right, then. Well, that's something else for us to discuss live on the Zoom call
Could
while
be,
we are
it
here.
could be a big one here, couldn't it? Cool. Look at this. Breaking news.
In
Like
fairness,
Sky Sports.
I think, in fairness, I think I already know who it is. So I'll wait until it's announced. And if it's not who I think it is, do not ask me who is the person I think it is.
Position?
I can't say. But I can say. I think Gillingham fans will be very happy.
So if it's who you think it is, then it will be very happy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Look at this. Cool. This is breaking news. I feel like I should have a microphone.
I know. Yeah. I feel like I'm on Sky Sports.
Exactly. Yeah, like Jim White, full on. Like.
Yeah.
Right. Where do we get to anyway? We've been distracted, both of us here. Right. We moved on from. We spoke about your goal at Oxford. We moved through into the winter. I want to talk about that first half of the season, because I know you got injured in a cup game against Exeter, which was mid-November time, just as we were approaching sort of midwinter, and you missed 5, 6. How long did you miss in terms? It was so hard this season to gauge how many weeks people were missing because everything was so condensed. I think you probably missed more games than you would have done in a normal season. 7
games.
So it's probably only about a week and a half, wasn't it, this season?
Yeah, I know there were so many games. I think I was out for. I think I was out for exactly.
Oh, here we go. So your Exeter was the game you'd done it. That was the 28th of November, and your next appearance was Plymouth on the 2nd of January.
Yeah.
So you missed a month and a few days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably missed half the season because of COVID, because of how it was being played. But looking back now, because we know we got close to the playoffs without ever really sort of cementing ourselves. I think we was in there for 2 days, weren't we, at the business end of the season? I'm not talking after 4 or 5 games, but how frustrating was that first half of the campaign now, looking back, considering how good we were from January when Steve made the sort of reshuffle with the loan window and sort of got a couple out and brought in Ollie Lee, Callum Slattery, Robbie Cundy, all had a massive effect on us going forward. Gave sort of someone like Cundy, wasn't, I'm not saying he was a star player, but he went under the radar. But what he did was he gave Jack Tucker a partner, more continuity for everybody. And is there a sense of what might have been or what should have been? Because the first half of the season, we were too inconsistent to really give ourselves a position to get into the playoffs and stay in the playoffs, rather than only going in there fleetingly because we played before everybody else.
To be honest, I just don't think we were good enough in the first half of the season, as in players wise, as in squad wise. If you look at the additions that we made in January, it just strengthened us, and we just became a better team. We just had better players, we had a better morale, we had a better environment. I think that just helped us, and I think that's just how football goes sometimes. You can look at teams that, there's some big clubs out there in the Premier League that need strengthening. If they make 3 or 4 or 5 good additions in summer, they might be a completely different team next year. And that's kind of where we were. We were win 2 games, lose 5, win 4, lose 1. And it was like we couldn't find any consistency because we weren't good enough to be consistent. Whereas you come to January, the additions that we made just allowed us to have more strength in depth, more options off the bench, better quality of player. And I think we just naturally got better. So if your question is if the squad that we had on the 31st of January was there from the 8th of August, where would we have finished? I don't know. But I think we had a real chance of being in the top 6 for sure.
Yeah, because if you look at our points per game average from January onwards, I think it's not too far away. And I think over the last sort of 20 games, we were averaging 1.7, which is, you're going to be very close. And that's no disrespect to the likes of, Trey Coyle, Zach Medley, Josh Eccles, Declan Drysdale, who were there in the first half of the season. Jacob Mellis, unfortunately, I thought was just running into form, and then he picked up an injury and never really came back from that, unfortunately, because when he did get fit, we was probably playing a little bit better and he struggled to get in the side. But
yeah,
I just felt similar to what you said, and I'm glad you've said that, because I sometimes think I have an opinion. I wonder what players think. Do you think they think I'm talking absolute nonsense, or because you're in and around it all the time, you see it day to day, you go in and train with these people, whereas all we can do is, go to a game or watch it on iFollow on a Saturday or a Tuesday. And I just felt the likes of Ollie Lee's experience, Callum Slattery just looked a little bit further on in his footballing education. I thought Robbie Cundy come in, like I say, he was very young for a centre half traditionally, but what he did was he allowed us to play 2 centre backs all together so they could build up a relationship.
Give me 1 sec.
No worries.
Leave him in. That's why I left him in there. In. In. Come on. In. I'll get him in. Hey. In. Sorry, Matt. Go on, mate.
No problem at all. I've got the same issue with mine. Mine are in the garden at the moment. I'll shut all the doors.
Oh. We've got two next door, and when one comes out and they both are at the same time, they go absolutely mental.
Oh, yeah, same as us. Yeah, there's a big one
It's a nightmare.
next to us as well. And ours are only little, got chihuahuas, and they think like they can fight the world. But
Yeah. Mine's not far off, to be honest.
So I feel your pain. Yeah, so just saying, I think Robbie Cundy came in, like we said, and it just allowed us to play a consistent centre-back pairing. Whether they was both 9 out of 10 every week was by the by. It just meant that we had a bit of consistency in selection, whereas I think first half of the season, Jack probably had about 6 defensive partners. I think if you look at Christian McGoma, he had Robbie McKenzie, he had Connor Ogilvie, he had Drysdale. There were so many. It was Zach Medley. That's half a dozen straight away. And you can't build up relationships doing that. And then you had an injury at a key time, didn't you? We lost Stuart O'Keefe really early. Demps missed the first month of the season after getting injured against Hull. And it all just felt a very stop-start. And
it was,
like you said, we started really well. I think after 5 games, we were 4th after the Oxford win. And then we went through 5 matches without even scoring a goal, didn't we, in October? And we weren't playing badly. I think. Did you miss a penalty?
I did, yeah, against Sunderland, yeah.
When we was on top, you missed a penalty, then Macca got sent off about a minute later. And
then they got a penalty and scored,
and then they got a soft penalty, yeah. And it was just everything seemed to be conspiring against us. But yeah, after the January window, it felt like we was getting the rub of the green a little bit more and that type of thing. And as much as it was frustrating because we weren't able to go, it was still good to watch us. And I suppose the only saving grace with iFollow was I managed to watch every single game this season, which I probably wouldn't have been able to do in a normal season. But there's just a little bit of, like you said, if we'd had that squad from the first game of the season, I think we'd have been a lot closer. Whether we'd have got in, I'm not sure, but we'd have certainly been a lot closer. And
I agree.
I think we only went in, didn't we, Easter weekend because we played Wigan early, didn't we? And we went into sick for a couple of days, but I think someone like Blackpool had about 4 games in hand, and Donny at the time before they fell away. And we was always chasing our tail a little bit, unfortunately, weren't we? But there was some really good performances after Christmas. I think the Crew one we've already mentioned. I thought we were absolutely spot on that night. Really good goals in that game. Preston Myers stopped them playing. I think you was involved in the first goal. Was that the Ollie Lee turned into Dennis Burkamp that night? I think, didn't he? A little bit.
Yeah.
Spin, yeah.
Great finish as well, yeah.
Where would you say in terms of, if you look back at the season now, if you could pick 3 performances, would you say the 3 best performances for Gills, or even just the top 1?
Team performances?
Yeah,
or individual?
Either. Team performances in terms of results, or
team performance. I think Lincoln away was really, really good. Really good. I think we knew how they wanted to play after the first game. The game was on Sky when we lost. We saw what they're about. We knew how to try and nullify what they have and what their strengths are. And I think that was a really good team performance. I also think our best performance of the season was probably Oxford away up until the 75th minute. And then I think that could be the reason why we kind of fell out of the playoffs race, because that game was kind of the game. Now it's all done and it's hindsight. I think that's the game where
it's just come up. Can we do our Sky Sports bit again?
Say again.
It's just been announced. I've just seen it and I'm very happy. Yeah.
Oh, you are? Wait, let me see.
Breaking news: Gills have just signed Ollie Lee.
Ah, okay.
So is that who you thought it was?
Okay. No.
Oh. Oh no. There could be another one.
No, wasn't who I thought. But that's a very, very good sign.
Well, if there's potentially another one that we're really going to like, this is Jordan. You can blame Jordan. You all know what his Twitter handle is if this all goes wrong. But
I
apparently,
know, yeah. I want no acts, yeah. Just for the record, no acts, no questions, no questions.
But
I
no,
can't. But that's a
breaking
good sign.
news.
That's
Gills have
Ollie's
just
good.
signed Ollie Lee, so that's a really good addition for the start of the
That's
season.
brilliant, yeah.
So really happy with that. And right, Jordan
But
White.
yeah, no, sorry, where was it? Yeah, so I think Oxford away, yeah, up until the 75th minute was a really good performance of ours, but we just dropped deeper and deeper and invited too much pressure. And when you're playing against a team that is, you know, as good as Oxford, it's hard to be that deep and not concede a goal. And they had the momentum, and then we ended up losing. And then that's kind of where the season swung in a bad way
Back
for us.
the other way, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think
Yeah, they're
March
the
we
ones
were
that
unreal,
stand out.
weren't we? March we'd done so well. I think we won 6 out of 8, 5 out of 8 to get ourselves in the mix. And it was almost like we just ran ourselves. To me, as a fan, it just looked like we'd run ourselves into the ground and just probably ran out of steam a little bit because we was only working with 14, 15 that were playing regularly.
So I do agree with what you're saying, yeah. But then we're such a weird group because then we go to Peterborough on the penultimate game of the season and beat a team that get automatic promotion, and we were comfortably better than them.
That was literally the Tuesday after Oxford, wasn't it?
Literally the Tuesday after Oxford, yeah. So it was kind of like, but that's like the story of our whole season, really. In fairness, you know, we just couldn't quite put the right results together at the right time to really get in there. But you know, we had some great memories. I loved Sunderland away, you know, because like referring back to what you said, me missing the penalty in the home game and then scoring 93rd minute at the Stadium of Light to get us a point was no better feeling for me probably all season. That was, I mean, good, yeah. There's not many stadiums want to score a last winner in other than the Stadium of Light. So for me, that was a big moment. Yeah, but we had loads of good performances this year. Some really poor ones and some really, really good ones as well.
Yeah, you're right. That Oxford one, I think I've got it on Instagram, the video of and in my match day live. And after Cundy scores, I'm shouting down my iPhone, and the playoff dream's very much alive. And within 20 minutes, I was just like, "What has happened here?" But it's one of them. It happens, doesn't it? You can't. Sometimes you just can't legislate for these type of things. And I think if they'd not scored the first one so quickly after Robbie had scored, we'd have probably been all right and we'd have probably seen it out pretty comfortably and might have pinched another one. But because they got one back so quick, yeah, you're right. But that's not the reason.
It's one of those. Yeah, it happens.
In the playoffs. Yeah, I think it was like you said, the first half of the season that was what cost us getting in the playoffs ultimately.
Yeah, correct.
But yeah, like you've said, there was some really good. I think I had Peterborough as the top performance of the season in my season review, just because of who they were, because of their home record and the fact that they did end up going up automatically as well. I know Lincoln had a couple missing, but there was a couple of other underlying reasons for me why I was so pleased we beat Lincoln, because I thought we got tucked up in the home game. It was never a penalty. I think Brennan Johnson dived, and I've said that on plenty of other podcasts that I go on. And I think, and unfortunately now the lad, I think his reputation's now starting to go before him, because he tried it on in their home game as well and got booked, I think, for simulation. And dare I say, he went over a bit easy in the playoff final at the weekend and didn't get anything. So it's a shame, because he's a really good player. He's another one, I think he might have got to double figures in goals and assists, and he'd be a very good player. But it's just something he probably needs to cut out of his game. But that sort of stuck with me a little bit, and it was almost like, not revenge, that's probably too strong a word, but I just felt like we owed him one, because, and again, I'm not saying the penalty was the reason we lost at the Priestfield. We were 1-0 down already, but we were on top at 1-0, and then that killed it, and we had to really go and chase it, I think. And I think, did you pick up a slight knock in that game as well? I can't remember. I'm sure you took a bit of a dead leg or something. I remember watching it on the telly.
Was that the Lincoln game? I'm trying to think now. No, I don't think it was the Lincoln game, but there was a game at home where I picked up a dead leg. Yeah, no, it was Ipswich that game.
Oh, was it?
It was the home game against Ipswich where I picked up a dead leg. Yeah,
I knew there was one. I thought there was a point where you took a knock off the fullback in the Lincoln game as well. But like I say, they came so quick this season. They all sort of merged into one, didn't they? So we move forward into the spring. We've sort of already, like you said, Sunderland away. That was a brilliant performance, I think, as well. Macca scored his only goal of the season, didn't he? That was a really good strike as well. Yeah. He should have scored again, I think, didn't he, at the bar in that game as well.
Yeah,
put us in front just before half time. But I really like Macca. Again, you see him every day, and you know what he's like as a person rather than just as a player. And he comes across as really bubbly and one of those sort of types of players that you need in every dressing room. You play anywhere for you. You run through a brick wall. I thought from probably Christmas to the end of the season, he was probably one of our most improved players.
definitely. And what a guy, mate. I couldn't, like, whatever you think of him, no matter how bubbly you think he is, you honestly have no idea. This guy is, it's like he just constantly drinks Red Bull, but he doesn't. But it's how he is. He's just non-stop all the time. And you are right. Every dressing room needs a Macca, every dressing room. Because there are days where, the boys are down a bit from a game, or they're down from training or whatever. And sometimes it can be heated in training, or it's frosty, or you have a little argument on the pitch. And Macca just picks everyone and everything up. And he's class. And yeah, I completely agree. From Christmas onwards, I think the first half of the season, and I think if you spoke to Macca, Macca would say as well, I think Macca he had a tough pre-season because I think the layoff from the coronavirus was quite a while, and Macca came back and had a lot of catching up to do. And I think he didn't play week in, week out from August to January. I think he was in and out. He'd play one position, play another. He had no consistency.
I think he was just getting a run, wasn't he? And then I think he got that red card, and then he sort of almost set him right back to where he'd been. Yeah.
But then from January, I think he looked after himself. He got himself into a really good condition physically, and I think Steve kind of saw that and appreciated that, and kind of gave him the platform then to say, right, you've earned this now. You've got yourself. You look after yourself. You worked hard. You train hard. Here's your run of games. And I think Macca just took that in his stride and I think he was class from January onwards.
Yeah,
I think he was one of the better players. And I think on the pitch, he's really good as well. He talks a lot. He keeps the boys going. It's not just off the pitch as well. He's got experience. And I think there was a lot of lads that needed that. And yeah, I think, he's a credit to the club, and he's a friend for life, Macca, for me anyway. I had Macca before when I went on my first ever loan to Oxford. And
I was going to say, didn't you play with him at Oxford before he was there? Yeah.
I met him there and he was class, and I've always got time for Macca. And this year I was over the moon when he signed down there, because he's just the guy that we need. And Gillingham will be lucky to have him again next year, because I think he'll only get better.
Yeah, I think I was very pleased that he signed a new contract. Him, and I mean, obviously, Gills announced it, didn't they, to sort of soften the blow of you, Connor, and Jack moving on, and then it was quickly announced that Stuart and Macca were both signing new deals, and tactically that was very good from the media team. But yeah, no, I'm very pleased he's staying, and I think he'll probably get more games next season. And like you say, he's probably, with the benefit of playing for the second half of the season, and the season ended slightly later than usual, and he should hit the ground running a bit better and be at that standard from the very first whistle of the new campaign, fingers crossed. Because, I think he's got a lot to offer. And I think aside from, and I think he's mentioned it, chipping in with a few more goals, I thought he was absolutely spot on, like you say, from certainly the turn of the year. Very, very good, and played a huge part in us, getting ourselves up the league.
Mm.
I want to talk about those players that are moving on along with you. It was Connor Ogilvie and Jack Bonham, along with yourself, were the three big ones that have decided to not renew. And I think as Gills fans, we're all disappointed, and you'd probably be aware of that. But we all understand it. It's a short career. You have to look after yourself. You don't get loads and loads of opportunities to progress. And I think from your point of view, as a fan, I'd say you're too good for League One. Again, I'm blowing smoke up your arse. It was abundantly clear to me quite early on that if you kept yourself fit and you got a run of games, that you was probably one of the best wide men in this division as an out-and-out winger. And it's quite refreshing to see, because I think touchline, studs on the touchline type wingers have sort of been phased out of the game over the last few years. It's we have this inverted wingers and wide attackers, and it's good to see someone who just gets to the byline and gets balls into the box. I think it's a bit of a throwback, and sort of growing up in the 80s and 90s, I think on 4-4-2 football, I think it's great to see, the likes of Man United teams that had Giggs and Beckham and Lee Sharp before that, and you had Liverpool in the 80s with John Barnes and that type of thing. I think it's great to see that there is still a place for that type of player in the game, because like you mentioned right at the start of the chat, it was difficult for you to break into the side in your first loan spell, because we were playing very narrow and our width was effectively coming from our fullbacks, and then we were solid in the middle of the park and getting the ball into the two big men that way. But Connor Ogilvie, good enough to go and play Championship? I think so.
I agree, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. Connor, very good technically, very sound defensively, very level-headed, very calm, doesn't say much, works hard, top lad, rubbish golfer. So make sure he listens.
I'll tag him in it. I'll tag him for just for you.
But no, Connor, yeah, very good. Big fan of Connor. Yeah, I think he can definitely play championship for sure. Jack Bonham, great guy. Doesn't say he's a lot less than Connor, which is almost nothing. Terrible golfer as well, so you can at him as well.
Fair
just
enough.
So he hears.
Okay.
And yeah, Jack's class. Great goalkeeper. Great shot stopper. Really, really calm guy. Doesn't ever lose his head really, hardly ever. Loads of ability, played plenty of games. And I think both of those two would be sound signings for championship clubs, in my personal opinion.
No, and again, it comes back to what I've said plenty of times, is you get to see them day in, day out. We can only form an opinion on twice a week, so to speak.
Of course.
So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they both go. It's weird because Jack lives up the road from me, which is quite odd.
So, oh, right, okay. Does he?
Yeah, he lives on the island where I live. So
yeah.
And I bumped into him at a garden centre where my missus works. There's like a garden centre and a coffee shop, and she works in the coffee shop. And I'd gone to pick her up from work one day last year, like throughout the lockdown, and looking around, some tall geezer in there looking at pot plants and bonsai trees, and I was like, don't know if I look like our goalie.
Yeah, sounds like something Bonham does as well.
Yeah, I think he was in there with his missus picking out plants. He said it was for his mum. I'm not sure if it was for his mum.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
But so you could at him in that one. But yeah, he comes across as a really good bloke. And yeah, it was interesting what you said as well about being quiet, because he comes across as very quiet for a goalkeeper, because traditionally you think goalkeepers are a little bit mental, for want of a better word. They're, their own breed, and that's always been what's been said. But I think he comes across as probably one of the most reserved keepers I've ever seen, certainly in a Gills shirt and probably in the game as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree. But the craziest part is I actually almost think I don't know anyone who could be as mental as Jack, though. Sometimes you get those people that don't say a lot and don't say anything, but you do not want to get on the wrong side of them. And that is Jack Bonham for sure.
Fair enough.
Doesn't say much in the dressing room, outside the dressing room. No, on the pitch, he's very, very quiet, very calm, very level-headed, but a fantastic keeper. And I do hope for his and Connor's sake that they go on to have great careers. But like I said to you earlier, I'm in touch with everyone. I made some real friends for life at this squad this season, and it was a pleasure to be there and have all them as my teammates. And I've made some real good connections that I'll keep with me forever.
We've got to talk about one particular player then, as we're talking about relationships, and that's Big V for Dane Oliver, who, again, like yourself, absolute legend on and off the pitch, and a top bloke, and a top professional, and obviously top scorer, and deservedly won that as well, because he was brilliant. And I didn't think his performances in the first half of the season were too different to what they were in the second half of the season. I just thought everything started going in, and it was so pleasing to see. And in terms of top bloke, this was what he sent me at the end of the season, and he didn't have to. He messaged me on Instagram, and he'd nicked a photo I'd used on Twitter of him when he won the Gills in the Blood Player of the Year thing, and I just put a tweet out with a load of the stats, and he'd nicked it for his Insta story. So I commented, and then he started replying and chatting, and just out the blue said, "Thanks for the support this season. What's your address? I've got a shirt." And I was like, "You really don't have to do that. That's not why I do this. I do it because I enjoy doing it, and I do it because I love supporting Gillingham Football Club." But yeah, I think for me, it became very apparent that he's an even better bloke than he is a centre forward, and he's a bloody good centre forward. So what's your relationship? Because obviously me and you and him have had a bit of banter on throughout the season, the bad boys tweets and that type of thing throughout. And would you say he was probably one of your best mates in the dressing room?
Definitely, yeah. So
I don't want to say, I'm not, he's better than Macca, or he's better than but you two seem to be very close on social media.
Yeah. V is so how can I explain? So basically, I'm not sure of when it was. When was it? Do you know what it was? It was before I came on loan to Gillingham in the January. Just before that, I went to Northampton just to I knew the manager, Keith Curl, that was there. So I went to have a little look around and whatnot. And I ended up training a couple of training sessions at Northampton. And Verdane was there, and I'd never met him before, I didn't know him. And we played like a little training game. And after that training game, he was basically saying to me, "Bro, you need to sign here. You need to sign here. Just get out wide and get balls in the box for me. Just need to sign here." And anyway, I ended up not going to Northampton, and I came to Gillingham, and that was the end of it. Really, didn't speak to him again, didn't get his number or anything.
Didn't they sign, weirdly, didn't they then sign Mark Marshall, who got released by us in January?
Correct. And I came to Gillingham. Yeah.
So you've done yourself out of a league. So you've done yourself out of a playoff win.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And then I got to the summertime, and obviously I was speaking to Steve, and I was going to come to Gillingham and whatnot. And before I came, I saw that they signed with Dane Oliver, and I remember I was sat in my my dining room at home, and I said to my old man, I said, "That's a great signing." I said, "If I'm going to go to Gillingham this summer, that's a great signing." I said, "If he's there," I played a training game with him at Northampton, and I said, "The connection that me and him have is wicked."
Yeah.
So the first time when I came down and I signed and I went to the training ground, he's obviously come up to me like, "Oh, can't believe you signed." I said to him, "V, can't believe you've signed." And I said, "I'll try and help you. You try and help me." And that was it. From there on in, it was just, I think at the start of the season, we spent loads of training sessions after, once we'd done our training, we'd stay behind me and V and just do some crossing and heading. And I'd just whip balls in for him and he'd try and head it in the goal. And we just worked on our connection. And every game we speak to each other before the game, at halftime, during the game, after the game. And yeah, just a good guy, a real good guy, and a real good footballer, man. He knows what he is real good at, and he wants to do everything that can get what he's good at the forefront of the game. So anything aerially, anything that he can flick on, anything that he can set out wide, spin and get in the box. And he doesn't try and complicate. He doesn't try and do too much. He doesn't think he can do 20 step overs and this and that. He knows what he's good at, and he wants to be in the box. And as long as the service is good for him, he's all right. If I overhit one,
it was okay. It was okay most of the season.
You know what it is? He used to make me laugh because I'd put 4 or 5 good balls in for him, then I'd overhit one, and it's like, "Jod, I'm not doing it deliberately, bro. Just let me off this one time, please."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, he's wicked, and I love playing with him. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Stay then.
And how you saw our banter and relationship on Twitter and stuff is how we were in the changing room and on the pitch, and that was just the connection that we had. And like I said, that was the connection me and Demps had, and me and Maka had, and Connor had, and just the squad, Big John, just all of us, Jacko, we were all so close and tight knitted, and it was wicked. It was
we see bits of it. I think that's probably one of the good things from Instagram. I know you're not on there and you've had a few issues with fake accounts and stuff like that, but it's that's one of the good things of Instagram, is that you sort of get access to the changing room, because players will go in there and put stuff up afterwards. And there's some pretty bad dance moves. There's some that were decent. I mean, I can't dance and I don't profess to or try to, but there's been some dodgy dress sense I've seen as well. I see Mr. Akinde got battered a few times, bless him, for some.
I'm so glad you brought up John Akinde. Yeah. I can't even. We'll be here for another 2 hours talking about John Akinde's dress sense. Oh man.
But no, it's good to see, and like I say, it's been nice because of the fact that because we've not been able to go to the game, so you almost feel a bit closer to it all through Instagram, Twitter, and that type of thing. But it doesn't beat the real thing. And I think before we start talking about a couple of other bits, and then I'll let you go, is I think that's going to be certainly my biggest disappointment. And I'm sure I speak for a lot of the Gills faithful when I say that, unfortunately, we only got to see you all two briefly live, and that was that loan spell last season, a couple of home games from the bench. But yeah, it's very disappointing that we didn't get to see you in the flesh this season when you was at full fitness and full capacity and firing all cylinders, so to speak, and providing all them assists. And I know V's come out a few times on Twitter recently talking to the club and said that it's not the same even celebrating. He said the loudest cheer you hear when he scored his 20th goal was him shouting at himself, and it'd have been so much different. And never know, maybe we'd have made a difference in a couple of games where we might have got a couple of points each out as well, and it could have got us a little bit closer to the playoffs. But it was a pleasure watching you all season, and albeit from afar. Got a couple of bits we just want to talk about. Obviously, it's been quite prevalent in the press over the last 12 months or so, and I know it was the anniversary last week of the George Floyd murder, and that's the Black Lives Matter that we see you do, and the boys taking the knee every week before kick-off. I just wanted to ask you, as someone who's involved in it all the time, do you think it's making a difference, or obviously there still needs to be more done?
Correct, yeah.
But have you seen it making a difference at all? Because for me at the moment, it seems to have sadly gone the other way. And you just see every single game at full time, this player's like Marcus Rashford last week, 70 on Instagram, racist slurs because he's had a poor game in a game of football. And then I think it was Raheem Sterling and one other after the Champions League final. And you think that's probably going to happen during the summer when we watch the Euros, because Twitter has to do more for me. Instagram, Facebook, and all these powers that be have to do more. And there's been talk of, like social media passport type things where you have to have a photo, you have to have an ID login. What's your thoughts on it and how we can improve it and not eradicate it? I unfortunately don't think we will eradicate it completely, but certainly make it a lot better than it seems. It's almost like it's become fashionable again. And I know that's not a great word to use, but you know what I mean? It was like the 80s, we had it in grounds, it was hooliganism, and then it was racism and chucking bananas at black players and making monkey noises, and then it sort of got phased out, and we had the kick it out campaign through the 90s into the 2000s, and then for some reason in the last year or so it seems to have become more obvious again or so. I know that's because of social media. It's always been there, but it's easier to do it now, unfortunately. What do you think is the solution, or at least a way to make more steps and quicker?
Well, I think a lot of the reason why it's almost become a thing again in the last year or so, or year and a half or so, is because people are kicking up a fuss about it now. There's more stuff being done. There's campaigning that's going on. There's protests that are happening regularly. There are, there's for the first. I mean, since we've rejoined football, there's been kneeling before every game to show that Black lives do matter.
Yeah. And
I watched quite a powerful interview. I think it was with Darren Lewis, the journalist on Sky, not too long ago, actually. He kind of said, I think the conversation was about Wilfried Zaha, because Wilfried Zaha chose to stop kneeling. And he was almost saying it's not working now. There's more racism that's even before. So what's the point in doing it? And Darren Lewis said, what people like Wilf need to understand is that it's actually the fact that we're still talking about it, it's working. Even though, like you said, eradicating racism is nigh on impossible to eradicate, but you've got to try and make a change and do things differently. And for us to be on TV or on a Zoom call even now, still talking about, is the kneeling working? Is it powerful enough? Is there other stuff that we can do? It's sparking convo. And sparking convo is the way that you're going to make change. Yeah. You've got to keep talking about it. You've got to keep asking, is it working? Should we still do it? What else can we do? Because the more we talk about it, and I know a lot of footballers also have the mindset right now that, I'm just kneeling for 7 seconds before a game, and that's it. Like, what's really happening? Because Rashford's still getting abused, and I get that, and I get that 11 players, 22 players plus a ref kneeling on the pitch before a game is not going to stop someone in China racially abusing someone on Instagram 2 hours after the game. But the fact that people are still talking about the kneeling and talking about, is it working, and talking about what else can we do, that's quite powerful in itself. And it's things like that we've got to keep doing. We've got to keep talking and sparking convo. And that's the only way that you're ever going to make a change. And that's where I stand with it. So I'll always kneel, and I'll always talk to people, and I'll always try and offer advice. And I'll always think of ideas, if I can, if my ideas are wanted, in higher places that can make the world a better place. Because at the end of the day, that's all people want.
Yeah, definitely. And it's ridiculous. Like you say, we can all have our opinions on, Marcus Rashford was rubbish in a Europa League final, or Raheem Sterling shouldn't be starting for England because his form for Man City's not good enough. But there's one thing doing that and talking about him because of his footballing ability or his form. It's an entirely different thing where you're crossing the line and you're going so far beyond the line. It's a joke where you're sending someone monkey emojis or calling someone a nigger. Purely because he's missed a one-on-one. It's ridiculous, and it's difficult to talk about because obviously I'm not an expert on it, and I've spoken openly about mental health as well, which is another sort of taboo subject amongst men, and especially in football, because traditionally it's a man's game. It was historically, obviously I have to be careful, the women as well now, but historically men are perceived to have to be strong and almost just sweep it under the carpet. And I'm glad that that's changing. And that's why I talk so prevalently about mental health. And the same's got to be done about this Black Lives Matter as well. I think, like you say, because of the fact that we're still talking about it, if 10 people listen to this and 8 of them change the way they approach racism, and only 2 still carrying on being ignorant, then we've done a little bit. And
correct, because those then 8 people might tell someone else, and that could affect 50,
and then suddenly you've got another,
you know
and it keeps snowballing, and suddenly you've got
there you go
50,000 people that are changing their approach to how they sort of see things, and only 1,000 people are still being ignorant and sick about the whole thing. So so I get that. And again, it comes back to only being able to watch it on the telly and through Sky Sports, BT Sport, that type of thing, or watching you fellas on a Saturday and a Tuesday. And so to have to talk to someone who's, I'm not saying directly been involved in it, I don't know whether you've ever had any form of racist abuse at all, but because obviously, no disrespect to us at League One level, that tends to be sort of put to the back burner.
Less and less as you go down.
It's the Premier League, isn't it, and all that.
But
we've seen it happening in the National League. I think there was a game that got stopped in the National League a couple of seasons ago because someone was abused. And is it something that you've been victim of? Or
I have, yeah. I mean, I've had some serious cases. When I was playing for England, we played in I think it was under 17s European qualifications. We played Georgia, away in Georgia. And the ball went out for a throw, and I went to pick the ball up, and I just had literally 2,000 fans just all doing monkey chants, chucking banana skins, and this was with England, and I was just like at 17, I was 16, 17, I was thinking this is crazy, like.
But do you develop a thick skin to it? Not in the sense that I ignore it because.
I mean, I think
I have to, but
different.
because of the fact that you sort of. I suppose tolerates that, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's because it's It's because it's so prevalent again that you just have to have a thick skin to it. Otherwise, you'd never play football.
Of course, yeah, and I mean, I think everyone's different. I mean, people take things differently and people react to things differently. For me, you know, when I'm on the pitch, I get on with the game and I just play football, and even it more than anything, it fuels me. Like I said to you earlier back in the interview. So going back to that example, playing for England in Georgia, that game, when they did that, all I wanted to do was score. All I had visions of is now just score and just go and stand in front of them and just look at them like this, the whole stand. It fuels me. Now, am I in a different mind space? Would I walk off the pitch? I don't know. Would I ask the game to be cancelled? Would I ask to walk off? I don't know. Maybe I would. I haven't had it recently to know if I could give you an honest answer, but back then when I was younger,
isn't it? Because it's all come again in the last year where you've had no crowds, have you? So it's only on social media. So I suppose it'd be slightly different if you get it, if you was, say, you know, it was an away game or whatever, and like you mentioned, you go and take a corner and you hear someone and you go, but you almost do a double take. And I've heard it in away grounds. I've heard it being stood at Southend away a few years ago. And this was coming from Gillingham fans. And this was Gillingham fans making racist comments about a former Gillingham player who then left us and gone somewhere else. And you almost think at first, you sort of think, I can't have heard that right. That can't have come out of that fella's mouth. Because not 6 months ago, you're cheering on this player, and now you're calling him all the names under the sun purely because he's decided to change club without knowing the reasons why he's changed club. Could have been released, could have been for family reasons, mental health reasons. But you've decided that because he's got different colour skin to you, you can make a racist comment and think it's okay.
It's disgusting. It's crazy. But like we're saying, that this is why I think these combos are so important, because hopefully people can watch this and eventually, hopefully, someone can change their mindset or how they perceive things. And that's all. At the end of the day, that's all we can do. All we can do is try and make a change. And as long as we're doing that, then we're doing our best. You know what I mean? And that's what matters.
And I think that is all we can do. Is people have got to keep doing their best and that type of thing, and keep making.
I agree.
Like we've already said, minimal changes. Because if we all make minimal changes, then suddenly it becomes a bigger change globally, nationally, that type of thing within the sport. Right, last question before I let you go. Euro 2020, 21, because it's been postponed because of COVID, starts just over a week's time. England's first friendlies tonight against Austria. You've seen the England squad. How far do you think we're going to go? Because the draw's tough, isn't it? I didn't realise, I was on a podcast last night previewing, I didn't realise that if we win the group, we end up playing France, Portugal or Germany, it looks like, in the second round. And if we finish runners-up, we end up playing Spain in the second round.
Yeah.
So if I'm putting you on the spot now, what represents a good tournament for Gareth Southgate's England?
I would say Right, it's a good question. I don't know because I mean I've got to take the draw and who they're going to play out of it because they're going to have to play some good teams to win it anyway. But
Of course.
I think this England squad is capable and possibly should be winning this tournament. Like the players they've got, the time that they've all been together, the time they've had to gel. There hasn't really been many new faces in. It's the same manager. A lot. Eventually, this England team is going to have to try and compete. And we rewind 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and people going, "Oh, they need to get rid of these Gerrards and Lampards and Scholes. Now let the young boys come in." And this is when Harry Kane came in, and then you got Sterling, and then Rashford broke through at United, and now you got Grealish, and then there's Foden, and eventually these players that you're all asking for, they're going to have to try and start to compete now. They're not young anymore. It's not like, oh, well, we've got a young group still. These boys are regular Premier League players. Like these, some of them, we've just had, I don't know how many, have just played in the Champions League final for 2 different teams. These are world-class players.
Yeah. And so, United in the Europa League as well. You had Shaw.
There you go.
Maguire would have played if fit. You had Rashford.
Yeah, Maguire would have
Greenwood before he picked up an injury. Yeah, there's plenty.
Greenwood. And then you're looking at Chelsea with Chilwell and Mount, and you're looking at James and Man City with Sterling and Foden and it's John Stones. It's like eventually England are, and I'm not the one that wants to put pressure on England and be like, oh, they need to win. I'm a typical England fan. I'm going to be fuming if they only get to the quarters. But at some point, we're going to have to sit here and go, do you know what? It's almost, this is the perfect time for England to go and win a Euros, and I think it's now. I think they've got to believe that they can win this tournament because they are as good as a France, they're as good as a Portugal, they're as good as Germany, and they've got to show that now. And I hope they've learned a lot from the Croatia game in 2018, and I hope they've matured because it's pretty much the same squad. So I think they've got a real chance. I do. There are some wonderful, wonderful squads out there. It's hard to look past a France or a Portugal for me, just because I believe those 2 teams are, if I had to put money on it, I'd be going on a France or a Portugal for me. But England have just as good as a chance as almost anyone, really. I mean, France won the World Cup in 2018 and they weren't actually that good. They weren't standout.
I think England's squad's better now than it was in the World Cup.
I agree, yeah. And I mean,
like
I look back
because you've had
France and they were scraped past Australia like in those games, and they weren't like, wow, look at these. Belgium always let themselves down. Germany are trying a new direction. Spain have dropped off the boil. I mean, England have a chance of winning this tournament. So, I mean, it's going to be the same for me. I'm a big England fan. I love England. I don't miss a minute of English football whenever the national team play. And I almost cry when they get knocked out. But I do hope this year that they can.
It's a bit like Gills. It's a bit like Gills. It's the hope that kills you all the
time. Yeah. And now that I'm a fan and not a player, because Gills I'm playing, but for England I can't help anyone. I'm just watching on, and I just hope that they can really do something special because I want to be around when England win a major tournament. So I hope they can find a way.
Good stuff. Right, final question. Promise.
Yes,
Jordan Graham, free agent, is going to get the right move this summer, whether that's League One, Championship. Will we see him in the Premier League eventually?
I completely 100% believe so. 100% believe so. I believe I've still got loads to give. I believe I'm only really just getting into my career. I actually had a conversation yesterday with my old man, and we were kind of talking about the fact that I've actually missed so many games in the last 4 to 5 years that you would expect someone who's a professional footballer by the age of 26, they've played probably 300 odd league games, whereas I'm around the 100 mark because I've missed so many games.
That's what made me ask, because I thought you're probably sort of at the stage where you'd be if you was 18, 19, 20, 21.
Correct.
In terms of games. So in terms of,
correct,
aside from the ACL, your body's still fresh and probably means that you've got a little bit further to go rather than a traditional 26-year-old, like you say.
Correct, yeah. And I mean, not just necessarily the matches that I haven't played, the learning, the training, all the training sessions I've missed, all the things that I need to add to my game to develop. I mean, I should have probably played 200 more league games if I didn't miss almost 2 to 2.5 years of football. And I still think I've got so much more developing to do as a person, on the pitch, off the pitch, and as a player, on and off the pitch. And hopefully I can, add all those things to my life and my game over the next 2 years, 3 years, and it's not going to be too late for me. I believe that I will get to the Premier League, and that's the first part of it all, is believing. And then the second thing is having an open mind and always being willing to learn and improve. And then the third is putting it into action and showing people what you practice and preach. And I believe I can get there. So the dream isn't over for me, for sure.
I think that's a really good place to end it. Jordan Graham, it's been a real pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed listening to your stories and talking about football in general, racism, Black Lives Matter, Gills, everything. I think it's been really, really interesting. I'm sure the fans will love listening to you as well. So once again, a huge thank you. Gills fans, you know where we are. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. You know where Jordan is on Twitter. Go and follow him. Keep following that career, because I think it will keep going on an upward curve. And you never know, we might be sitting here for Euro 2024, maybe talking about Jordan Graham potentially in the England squad or in the World Cup in a couple of years' time, and that'd be brilliant. And we can say that he was made in Kent almost. That is it for today's Gills and the Bloods Chat 2. Like I say, it's been a real pleasure. So thanks again to Jordan. We'll be back soon for another episode. But until next time, up the Gills.